The real question, which witch was which? The Reckoning was directed by Neil Marshall, who directed Dog Soldiers, The Descent, and Doomsday. Stars Charlotte Kirk as the character of Grace, who also co-wrote the movie. Charlotte Kirk, not the character of Grace, would have been really meta but very strange given the setting. England, 1665, where a plague is basically destroying London and many cities, and people are fleeing to the countryside, though the plague does not play favorites. It goes after everybody. It's either coming from rats, a weird oil coming up from the ground, acid rain, buildings coming alive, titans in the street, who the hell knows? Actually, we know it's pretty damn obvious. And from there, we basically have a movie that's set in 1665, and this is during the time where on the other side of the pond there were these Salem witch trials. So naturally, I kind of just spoiled it right there. I won't spoil everything. Women are being targeted because they're women, they have ovaries, and because there's a plague around, they must be causing this. They're witches, burn them! And yeah, they blame the devil and his acolytes, so we must get Bradshaw and Farouk to come down and beat the shit out of people with chairs. And if you get that, you absolutely love wrestling like I do. So anyway, there are these, people doing the work of God called Witchfinders. We found the Witchfinder. They told us what to do. They said, let's capture all these women and let's torture all of them. And then if they don't, we burn them at the stake. That solves the plague. Boy, that was a really, really bad rendition of that song. They should have gotten the witch doctor from that episode of Scooby-Doo. Nano tiki tia! Ah! Boy, God, this review is really goddamn weird. I'm trying to drum up interest in making this entertaining because this movie wasn't entertaining. And here's the thing. It tries to be drama, suspense, horror, and a period piece. It tries to be all these things wrapped up into one. It doesn't know what it wants to be. I will say that Charlotte Kirk has a bright future as a leading lady. She did pretty well here. The acting in particular isn't all that bad. There's a character, Moorcraft, played by Sean Pertwee, who I think, pretty good given the fact none of the characters really were all that fleshed out, except Grace's, ironically, given a couple of scenes. And Stephen Waddington was the Squire character. And there are other characters. There's even, you get to see Lucifer at one point. No, not from the TV series. Here's the thing about this movie, ultimately. It was an hour and 45 minutes, and it could have been 90. They had some slow-mo that they didn't need to have. They had some endless padding. They had one particular scene where I'm like, I understand what they were trying to do, but it was disjointed. It didn't quite know what it wanted to be. So basically, Grace is trying to pick up the pieces, after her husband has passed away. And that is due to, circumstances surrounding this plague. And then there's a Squire character who basically says, hey, if you can't pay your rent, we could do this other ways. She says no, so she's captured by people, including people she thought she could trust, and she is put on trial for witchcraft. And the Moorcraft character comes in and is basically trying to get this stuff out of her. And how does he tie to Grace? Why does Grace seem like she's so angry at him? Well, it's pretty damn obvious if you saw the opening scene what that actually is, and I'll go into spoilers a little bit later. With this movie, though, Grace is in jail. There are various other characters there, and she hallucinates her husband's ghost. It could either be that or the devil, and maybe there's ties back to her past. Who the hell knows what's going on? They try to answer some of these questions. Unfortunately, they answer them in the most boring way possible. Now, this movie is available for like $5 on Amazon. It's not that bad. I will say, as far as a setting, as far as acting, it really isn't all that bad. What condemns this movie is being straight up boring. And that's the sad thing about it, is there was potential here, and it was squandered by basically just being basic. It was simultaneously trying to be safe and also trying to go for the, the horrifying thing of all women are being persecuted and all men are bad except like maybe two guys, a ghost character and this one helper that Grace trusts, that knows that she's a good person. Other than that, everything else is pretty goddamn basic, and ultimately what does, doom this movie is just how it's just kind of there. It just doesn't feel, it's not that it doesn't feel complete, it's just by the end you're like, okay, I didn't really care what happened with the hero, I didn't care what happened with the villains. None of these characters are really all that fleshed out outside the main heroine, so it was what it was. Not terrible, but ultimately boring, and that's a bit of a downgrade when it comes to a movie being boring like this. Anyway, I am going to get into spoilers here, so let me know, if you've seen this movie, please let me know your thoughts in the comments. So spoilers now, quick. Okay, so the whole thing about Grace losing her husband, he had the plague, and he didn't want to infect her and their young child, so he hung himself. And there were a lot of flashbacks in this. Now, it's probably a good thing they told us some flashbacks, but I think if anybody had the cognitive ability of a sea serpent that had been lobotomized, you probably could, I don't know why a sea serpent would be, asked about a movie, be a bit weird. They would probably be all sea and serpenty. What am I even on about? They they basically were telling us that, okay, he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to be a burden, and he ended up ending his life, and obviously that tore her up. And then the squire tries to sexually assault her, and she's a strong, independent woman that don't need none of that shit. So she refuses his advances. To be fair, she had every right to, and seriously, what the fuck is it with everybody trying to do that stuff? I don't get it. And then a bit later, the squire gets a bunch of people in the town bar to essentially get her captured and try her for witchcraft, because that's worked out so well and has ended the plague so goddamn much. Now there are points where they go into town and there are bodies being eaten by rats and dogs and stuff like that. And they try for their horrifying imagery. The problem is it basically just feels like a lame video game. It feels like a mixture of Dog Soldiers of Descent without the women cave diving for a whole bunch of symbolism, and it is not like Doomsday because there's no Rana Mitra. It's also a good thing it's not like Doomsday because that was shit. She gets put through a whole bunch of trials. While this is going on, she's witnessing her husband's ghost. And she's also, is this the work of the devil? What's going on? Does it tie into her past? She's hallucinating her mother. Maybe this stuff's starting to break her. There's other prisoners in there, including a young girl named Astrid. They seemed like they were going to go somewhere with, and then they kind of didn't. And then we get day graphics. It's day 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not like phase 4. No ants are controlling people. And Moorcraft basically is trying to just torture her. And she basically, she gets beat up a bit. She gets whipped into town square, and then she hallucinates basically the monster from Annabelle. This is where the spoiler stuff is coming in. The guy in the devil costume, and I got nothing against the actor, it looked so goddamn it looked like a discount version of, Tim Curry's devil costume from Legend, which came out in 1985, by the way, just to give you an idea. And I'm sure this movie had a low budget, but seriously, 2021, you couldn't find a better looking costume than that. And it was pretty goddamn silly. And, this whole idea, oh no, maybe is giving into the dark arts. They even kind of show her kind of fucking the devil. This is a bit weird. Not Evil Toons like, but it was still weird. But, maybe this is all going to tie back to her husband. Well, her husband is trying to get her to go to the good side because her husband didn't, want to leave her, but he didn't want to infect her. Also, turns out that there was this earlier scene in the very beginning, because that would be about as early as you could possibly get, where a woman was captured in slow-mo in black and white, and the daughter was upset. The daughter turned out to be Grace, and the woman turned out to be her mother, as I said, by the daughter being Grace. So, Moorcraft is part of this, and Grace has been wanting revenge for a while. And they do this weird thing where they put pins in her feet, and then they do this thing where they spread her like it's like, using a friggin' orange peel or an onion bloomer. Ouch. And there's also this character of Ursula. No, not Under the Sea, not a poor unfortunate soul. A woman that was burned that Moorcraft saved, and now she's his disciple. And then we get another side thing with so many goddamn side plots where this woman is friends with Grace, and her husband's abusive towards her because her husband was one of the people that put Grace in, the clutches of the squire. And then she throws a rock at the horse-drawn carriage that they have, and basically the wheel that about this far from his head crushes it. Now, I'm not saying that wheels can't crush heads, but that much, I think it would have hit him first and then maybe gone over him, but it was a weird edit. And Grace basically comes up with a plan to have this one guy that she trusts that's still alive, this, guy kind of reminded me a little bit of, a character from Harry Potter, where he was just, her helper. He gave her food, he trusted her, and he was going to poison the wine to give the Moorcraft and everything, but, the wine got switched and everything, so actually the wine wasn't poisoned, and Grace, corked his hand, and he had stigmata, the things these hands will do, and she's basically saying, this is this is the reckoning, this is my revenge. We got a title drop about 90 minutes in, and then, Ursula gets burned, and then just runs out the window. Just jumps. Oh, I got burned and I got saved and I'm just going to jump out the window. The movie just kept throwing shit at the end because they're like, shit, we need to wrap up all this stuff that nobody cared about. And then she basically ends up, she sends the guy Edwin to go find her friend and basically take the kid there. And then it turns out the wine wasn't poisoned, but oh no, she can't escape because she locked the town gate because she didn't want her to be saved. She didn't want the plague to get out because apparently the plague is going to be held back. Rats can't possibly get through the slats in that gate. And then they basically go to Edwin and this friend of Grace go off. And then it turns out that Grace actually managed to swim the entire English Channel to get away from that castle that contained about maybe 20 people. And is saved and setting up the sequel. And yeah, I have no desire to see The Reckoning 2 Electric Boogaloo. It was boring. D. It gets a D. It looked cool. Charlotte Kirk has a bright future as a leading woman, and the acting wasn't bad, but it was ultimately boring. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.